Hey, Steve and Alex, welcome back to the library. My name is Wild Ones. Today, I've got a couple of things to do around here just to get ready. We're not starting work on building the library yet. I haven't even decided for sure where I want to put it, but I do need to get a few things done. And to help me with that process, I would like to put together a jobs board to kind of help keep me on track with the things that I'm going to need to do in order to get the library up and running. In addition to that, today I want to tell you the story of the perfect box. So I will be doing that in just a moment. To begin with, though, let's take a look at what kind of jobs we want to put on our jobs board. Okay, so we've got our jobs board here, and the first thing we need to do is to uh, gather some resources. We're going to need um, better tools and everything, so uh, we'll need some diamonds, and we're also going to need some redstone for some of the farms that we're going to need to do to get ready for uh, everything. We're going to need lots of books for a library, obviously, so we're going to need resources for that. And I think automating some of those is going to be very helpful. So we'll need both of those things. We will also need to have quartz from the nether. So we're going to need to put together a nether portal here pretty quickly to be able to get there and do that. Actually, in addition to the quartz, we're going to need other things like soul sand and various other things as well. So the nether portal is of primary importance, and things like quartz as well. All right, I may not have spelled that correctly, but I don't really care at this point. Let's see. We also need to build a cow farm. Let's go semi-automatic cow farm. Um, Again, we need the cows for leather and food, I guess, but leather is the main thing for this one. And in addition to the leather for the books, we're also going to need feathers for the book and quill, or yeah, whatever that's called. Book and quill, I think. So we'll need the feathers for that. So we're going to need a chicken farm. We can do an automatic chicken farm. Chickens are easy enough to do automatic, but I need to gather up either a bunch of seeds to feed them, or probably just get a few in a pen somewhere to get them started so I can use their eggs to make the farm. Let's see, we are also going to need an automatic sugarcane farm for all of those pages in the books. And then I guess the next thing we're going to need to do is to determine where we're going to build the library. So um, that will be important. I have been kind of scoping out a couple of different places to put that. Um, Debating currently whether I want to actually have it on the farm or build it up in the sky somewhere. I'm kind of halfway considering trying to make like a cloud base or something like that. Haven't decided for sure, but we need to determine the location for the library. I'm also going to want to start enchanting some tools pretty quickly here. So we are we're also going to need an enchanting station here somewhere. Probably going to ultimately build an enchanting room in the library, but I may want enchanting capabilities before that, so somewhere I need to put together an enchanting station. And let's see. Um, I'm going to want to have some villagers around here soon. And so we need to either locate a village somewhere and recruit some villagers from that. Hopefully, we can find some place close, uh, and so that we don't have to travel too far. I did mention earlier that I don't want to travel too far away from the spawn point, just so that we have ground available. The other way we could do it is to recruit or to cure some villagers, zombie villagers. I do want to start a bee farm to collect honey and honeycomb. Honeycomb is going to be important for the uh, treating copper once the new release comes out and those kinds of things. So we'll do that. We will also need a reliable source of ink for our book and quill. And so probably it would be wise to put together an squid ink farm as well. So we'll get that going. I can always go over there and get some out of the river, but I'd like to have a regular farm available as well. And the river's a likely place to put that. Okay, and then the only other thing I can think of at the moment is an iron farm. I have been getting a lot of iron from mining, but if we're going to have villagers around, I'd like to go ahead and put together an iron farm as well. So we will get that on our jobs board as well, so that we've got that. And I think that is probably about everything at the moment. I'll obviously be updating this as we go through and think of other things to put together, but that's the way it stands at the moment. So this is the story of the perfect box. Many years ago, when I was about 10 years old, my family was preparing to move to a new house in a town nearly 1,300 miles away. Another family with whom we'd been friends for many years came over to help us pack up the house and load the moving truck. The youngest child in this family was a boy named Kevin, and he was about the same age as my older brother Don. They were, about a year and a half older than me. Because they were so close in age, they always hung out together, and I was kind of the tag along little brother, I guess. I tried to join in, but I never was quite one of them. Now, the story goes like this: as the two men in the family, my father and Kevin's father, were loading the truck with the big boxes and things. Dawn and Kevin and I were trying to fill in the gaps in the truck with boxes or smaller pieces that would fit in and kind of make everything fit nice and snug. At one point in the loading process, we managed to create an almost complete wall of boxes and things. Everything was fitting in the place from floor to ceiling and on both sides, wall to wall. It was completely filled in. The only exception was a small hole at about our chest level that was distinctly a missing piece. And I remember Dawn turning to Kevin or Kevin turning to Dawn and, saying, we've got to find the box that's going to fit into that hole. And so that was kind of the mission for the day. Don and Kevin kind of studied the hole a little bit and then ran off to see if they could find a box to fit. Meanwhile, I was kind of left there in the truck looking at it. I walked over to it and studied it in much the same way I saw them doing. I held my hand up to the opening with my outstretched palm and could see that the width of the hole was about the distance from my thumb to my little finger as I stretched my hand open. And it was a little bit taller than that. Then I put my fist into the hole and it went back. The knuckles of my fist touched up against the back wall, and the front of the opening came to about the bend in my elbow. I took extra special care to make sure that I knew how big that hole was, because I kind of set it in my mind that I would be the one to find that perfect box. I thought, if I can find that perfect box, then they'll think I'm as cool as they are. So that was kind of my goal. I went around to all the different rooms in the house where boxes had been stacked up ready to be loaded on the truck, just looking through everything to see what I could find. And from time to time, I'd see Dawn and Kevin darting, in and out of the rooms looking for the box themselves. None of us were having terribly much success. But I'd hear them chattering about a box they had tried that was maybe just a little too big or, too small, something like that. So I knew I was still in the running. But each time I saw them running around together, I felt a little bit more melancholy. Eventually, I walked into the sunroom where my mom was packing up boxes. She must have noticed that I was feeling a little sad because she asked me what was wrong. I told her that I was feeling left out because Dawn and Kevin weren't including me in their fun. They were doing it on their own, but they were doing it together, and so I wasn't a little bit sad there. She consoled me as mothers do, and invited me to hang out with her for a while and help her load up boxes, which I did for a while. But as I was there in the room with her, I looked over and I noticed that there was a box on the table. And I held my hand up to the box and noticed that it was about as wide as my outstretched palm from finger to thumb. And it was a little bit taller than that. I held it up to my forearm to see how long it was, and it was just about the right distance from my knuckles to the bend in my arm. But it seemed really, really light, so I opened it up to make sure that it wasn't just an empty box. And once I had assured myself that it wasn't, I asked Mom if I could go ahead and load it into the truck, and she said that would be fine. So I went outside to take it to the truck. As I stepped outside and began to walk around to the front of the house where the truck was parked in the driveway, the older boys ran out and met me. Kevin snatched the box from my hands and showed it to Dawn, and the two of them ran off excitedly to the truck. I ran after them as quickly as I could. I ran up the ramp and into the truck just in time to see Kevin sliding the box into the hole, and it was a perfect fit. There were no gaps on either side, and it went all the way to the top of the hole. When it was pushed in all the way, it went to the back of the hole and came right to the edge of the boxes in the front. Now Kevin and Dawn were celebrating and congratulating each other for finding the perfect box, but I don't recall either of them saying anything to me. I remember being a little disappointed that I didn't get the recognition that I had expected to get for being the one that found the perfect box. Now, over the years, I've thought about this story many times. I usually think of it as a kind of parable. The box representing us and God wanting us to fill the hole in some
gap in somebody's life or something of that nature, some job that we need to do. And I often think that maybe we're the only ones that can fill that hole, that gap in somebody's life, that we're the perfect box. Recently, however, I've begun to think about this story in a slightly different way. Sure, that hole represents a job that God wants us to do, but if I think about it, that hole could have reasonably be filled by many things, not that perfect box. It could have been filled by a couple of smaller boxes fit into that hole. It could have been filled by a rolled up blanket or, a pillow or something stuffed into the hole. The fact is, the hole could have been left completely empty and not compromised the loading of that truck. In fact, that box could have been loaded anywhere in the truck. It wasn't that big. It could have filled just about any open gap in that truck. But there is one thing that nobody else knew about that box. I opened the box and I knew why it was so light. It was filled with artificial flowers, but they weren't ordinary silk flowers. They were made of a very thin and brittle plastic and were quite fragile. If that box had been loaded just anywhere in the truck, it could have been crushed or jarred, and those flowers would have been ruined. You see, the box needed to be in that hole because the hole protected the box. You see, we thought the hole needed to be filled by the box, but it turned out that actually the box needed much more to fill that hole. Now, you may be wondering why I bothered to tell you about how I was feeling as I was telling you this story. The truth is that if I hadn't had some sort of emotional connection to the story, I probably wouldn't have even remembered it. Don couldn't tell you the story. I asked him the other day if he even remembered it. He told me that he remembered moving and he remembered our friends coming over to help us load up the truck, but he didn't remember anything about the specifics of this story. I suspect if I had asked Kevin the same thing, he'd have told me much the same thing that Don did. To them, it was little more than just another day with friends having fun. You see, it was because I was feeling the way I was that this story had any impact on my life. This story, as it turns out, is kind of an application of the lesson that it teaches us. If the story was ever to be told by anyone, it would have to be carried in the heart of a fragile child and protected through time by things around it. The things that I thought were me needing to fill a gap, but in fact, those are the things that protected that story in my life. So, the one thing I ask you going forward is to think about how your life fits together with the people around you. When God asks you to do a task, do it. Sometimes you are doing the task because that's a task that only you can do, but sometimes God asks us to do a task because we need to do that task for us, for our sake, and for the impacts that that will have in our life going forward. All right, guys, so I'm just up here looking at different places that might be good for building the library. I've got a couple of thoughts. We may be able to do this area down here. It's pretty open and flat. This area over there across the river seems like a pretty good place. Um, I have been also thinking about building it up in the sky as kind of a cloud, a library floating in the clouds, kind of more of a mystical type place. Um, if I do that, though, I'll probably need to have a way to get up there. I've got a couple of different thoughts on how I could do that. One way is to maybe make a waterfall coming out of there and pouring down that I could swim up. But the other way would be to use portal. So link a couple of portals in the nether, which means it might make sense to put it over here floating above the kind of hill over here where I put the nether portal. I could use that as uh, the bottom of the the ground level entrance, and then it would link to another portal slightly higher in the nether that would come out here up in the clouds. And so maybe I would build up a little bit of, you know, different things here around this portal, or maybe make this entrance look a little more fancy. I'm probably going to do that anyway. But anyway, tell me what you think. If you've got thoughts on the location for the library, let me know what you think. As as we get more stories, we'll be putting those into the library, and probably be adding some other things there as well. I think that's probably where I'll be storing my enchanted books and things. Sorry, this video took a little longer than expected. Real life came up, and sometimes you just can't avoid it. Anyway, guys, have a fantastic day, and we'll talk to you next time. Bye.